So I got up this morning, like I do a lot of mornings, with my mind racing, and I gotta get to my office so I can document what I'm thinking. All right. One of the things what just woke me up is this realization that one of the biggest problems in America today is the fact that we don't have shared values, right? We used to have these shared values. We used to have these things in common that would hold us together, that would be cohesive, that would be glue for us, because we would pursue them together, regardless of our political spectrum, but regardless of what side you were on. These common values would hold us together, and now we don't. One of the reasons we don't is because we don't agree on what words mean, and we don't have the same meanings for the same word, right? Or we're mixing words up. And case in point, relatives versus family. Okay? They are not the same thing. Relatives are people that you are born connected to, right? You don't have a choice in who your relatives are because, my mother has a sister, and that sister had children, and those kids are my cousins, right? My mother's sister is my aunt. Her kids are my cousins. I can't control that. My mother had children. Those children are my siblings, my brother and my sister. I can't control that. But that does not necessarily make them my family. See, relatives are people you're connected to through bloodline. Family are people that you have built relationships with, that nurture you, support you, encourage you, that are accountable to you, and you're accountable to them. They're accountability partners. There's trust. There's generosity. There's empathy. There's compassion. We think, or rather, relatives are supposed to do those things. You would think that relatives would do all of those things I just mentioned about love and support and nurturing and trust and accountability. You would think your relatives would do that. But the reality is you have relatives who are absolutely the absolute opposite of those things, right? You have relatives who will literally use you, abuse you. You got relatives who will smile in your face all the while trying to take your place. They backstabbing. So what do you do when your relatives are not family? And what you have to do is you got to love them from a distance. Okay? You have to love yourself enough not to let anyone mistreat you. See, my mama told me many things. One of the things she told me was to never let people mistreat you. One of the core principles she taught me as a young person. My mother and my father, as flawed as they were at times, they gave me foundational home training that is invaluable today, which has made me a fully functioning, critical thinking human being. And that is why I do what I do now. That's what I do with the Smith Foundation, is we try to be a solution generator for the problems and challenges facing humanity today. Home training, that stuff my mama and them gave me, that fundamental principle, grounded information they gave me, is what our society lacks today, is what humanity lacks today. I see people online making decisions today that are so detrimental, that are so self-destructive, that are so, in my mind, fundamentally basic things, right? A lot of people would call this common sense. But the reality is none of this is common. You have to be taught these things. My mom and them taught me home training. Most people today are not getting home training. Most people today are not getting the foundational information that I was given. Our society is so jacked up and so off track that the basics in our society are now being heralded as something miraculous, when what most people are doing and talking about in terms of life coaching and personal development is they're giving people the basics. We're not giving you advanced personal development, positive psychology, epigenetics and metaphysics. We're not giving you advanced stuff. We're giving you the basic stuff because you haven't been given that. So that hit me this morning. I just had to get that out. And I used the example of relatives versus family, right? The issue here is we have got to get clear and start to communicate better so that we're, if we're not in agreement on the thing we're talking about, then how are we going to have good communication, right? We see communication breaking down because people are using different definitions for the same word, or they're using the wrong definition for a word, right? We have to come to an agreement on what a word is and what that word means before we move forward in the conversation and in the relationship. We have to agree on the shared values. We have to agree on the word and the language. Then we can, cope and communicate and resolve conflict so that we move amicably, move towards a solution when there's conflict. All right, what do you think?